Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Gardeners. In today's video we are going to be talking about succulent arrangements. Now you might have seen my arrangement that I had made some time back, which was a mix of two echeverias and one pachophytum. The pachophytum is about to bloom, so I had two of echeverias in this and they are doing quite well. And at times I tend to put the same genus of succulents. Like over here I have Graptovaria bashful. So all of them are Graptovaria bashful. Unfortunately they're not doing very well. One of them have got a little burnt. And at times I tend to use the same genus, like over here the echeverias. All these are echeverias. Or at times I tend to mix and match, like Graptovarias. These two are Graptovarias and these are echeverias. So we have few different genus of succulents in one arrangement. And then over here I have some of baby Letizia. Now these were grown from leaves. These are Sedoveria Letizia. So usually this is what I tend to do. Either I just keep one genus in an arrangement, or I tend to mix a couple of genus. But this is something that you need to keep in mind, and that's what we are going to be talking in this video. Now there are a couple of things that you need to understand before you make an arrangement. The most important thing is the container. Now obviously when you're making an arrangement you definitely need a little bit larger container. As you can see over here I have this papercrete ball that I have made, and in this you can definitely make any small little landscape, or you can arrange different type of succulents in this. So you will be able to see that the depth of this ball is very small, it's very little, but the width is more, so you can definitely work with it and you can put a lot of succulents. You can add in a little bit of decor. So it's up to you whatever theme you want to make. I generally do not go with any theme when I tend to make arrangements. I just put in the succulents, but ensuring that there is a good amount of space in between each of the succulents, so that they have a good amount of air circulation. At the same time they have enough space to grow. A lot of times they might look very congested, but that's how they have grown up. When I had initially put them, there was a lot of space. So there are some important pointers that you have to remember whenever you are making arrangements. I'm going to show you those pointers. Now the first and the most important is dormancy and non-dormancy. Now guys, in my city it does not affect a lot, so I do not follow this process. But if you are from a place wherein the temperatures in your place, either they are too hot or it's too cold, and your succulents react accordingly. Now this is all that I'm talking about is your outdoor, because indoor you do not need to be worried, because the dormancy and the non-dormancy is not going to affect to your indoor succulents. So this is basically we are talking about succulents that are placed outdoor. So for me it is not much of an issue, but if you are from an environment wherein your succulents tend to go dormant, so you will have to segregate your succulents depending upon the dormancy and non-dormancy. Now why is this so important is because a lot of you guys tend to use fertilizers for your succulents, so you cannot use fertilizers for a dormant succulent. So you can imagine mixing of dormant and non-dormant succulents, and if you are a person who tends to add fertilizers, then the succulents that are dormant will get affected negatively because of excess fertilizers in the soil, whereas the growing succulents will do quite well. So you will have an issue in the long run. Probably one of the variety of succulent will start to have issues, and that is not what we want, because when we tend to make arrangements we want them to last for a longer period of time. Now the second point that we are going to be talking about is the watering requirement. Yes, this is another important thing. You cannot randomly put all the succulents in together, because there are certain succulents that require a little bit more watering, whereas there are some succulents that require less watering. So again, that is another point wherein you need to segregate your succulents. Now over here I have two different varieties of succulents. Now the one on your left hand side, I'm not very sure about the exact ID, but it is definitely a variety of Echeveria. Now if you're going to look at the overall appearance of the succulent, you'll notice that the leaves of this succulent are very thin. They cannot store a lot of water. They do not have the capacity to store a lot of water in them. Hence they would get dehydrated at a much faster rate. So hence we would require to water them a little bit more frequently as compared to other succulents. This is a moonstone. It has much thicker leaves. This one is an echeveria. It has very thin leaves. Now obviously we cannot put both of these varieties in the same arrangement, because as you can see, the moonstone has very thick chubby leaves, which means that it can store more water and can tolerate drought. It can go without watering for a couple of days or even for a couple of weeks or months, because it can store a lot of water, whereas the thin leaved echeveria will not be able to store that much of water. So what's going to happen is, if you're going to add both of these succulents in the same pot or in the same arrangement, either one of them is going to get either overwatered or is going to get underwatered. So you have to be extremely careful, because remember, whenever we want to make an arrangement, we want that arrangement to last longer. If you're going to have an issue like this wherein one of the succulent is going to get overwatered or one of the succulent is going to get underwatered, you will have to definitely dismantle the arrangement and you'll have to take out the succulents. And trust me guys, once you start taking out succulents from the arrangement, it starts looking really bad and you kind of lose the entire arrangement and it starts looking very bad. The moment you take out one succulent, it starts looking very terrible. So that's why you have to be extremely careful whenever you are making an arrangement. Ensure that you're keeping all of these things in mind, that all of the succulents have the same requirements in terms of watering, in terms of adding of fertilizers, and in terms of dormancy and non-dormancy. In my city, as I said, I do not experience a very strict dormancy, so it's not much of an issue for me. But if you are from a place wherein you do experience strict dormancy on your succulents, so you will have to segregate your succulents based on that if you want your arrangement to last longer. Now the last point, which is the most important point in your arrangement, is selecting succulents based on the light requirement. Now over here I have a bunch of succulents. Now the first one that I have over here is Sedum Adolphi, Sedum Golden Glow, and then I have Graptosedum Ghosty. All of them prefer morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours. So you can see they're doing quite well. Now obviously in this I am not going to be adding Havartias. I never add Havartias to colored succulents. The reason is because Havartias prefer indirect but bright light. They will not do quite well in direct sunlight. They have a tendency of getting burnt. Apart from that, they require a little bit more watering as compared to the other succulents. Sedums are drought tolerant. They can go with a little bit of underwatering, but Havartias will not do very well with underwatering. So if I'm going to add the Havartia with this arrangement, obviously the Havartia will get burnt. So we have to be extremely careful. So we do not want to randomly mix any succulents, because if we are going to put a succulent that does not prefer direct sunlight, that succulent will get burnt. Or if you're putting a sedum in a arrangement of Havartias, then of course the sedum is not going to get that bright color and might start to stretch because of lack of light. So we have to ensure that all of these succulents in the arrangement are of the same type or have the same requirements in terms of sunlight, in terms of adding fertilizers, in terms of the watering. So all of these things are very important. Now of course you might have seen a lot of videos, or you might have seen a lot of images on Instagram, on Facebook, on Pinterest, that people have made these beautiful arrangements. They have put in all the succulents together, be it Havartias, but we actually do not know how long these arrangements will last. Because of course I can use the Havartia, I can put the Havartia in between of these sedums and take a picture. It's going to look absolutely beautiful with the contrast of all these colors and with that dark green Havartia in between. But over the long run, this is not going to work out really well, because either one of the succulent variety is going to get damaged. So yes, for the purpose of taking pictures, it looks absolutely beautiful, but we do not know how long those arrangements will last. Do we really want to make an arrangement just for a picture, or we want to keep that arrangement for a longer period of time? So it again depends upon you. If you are making an arrangement just for the pictures, then of course you can add your Havartia along with it. But in the long run, the Havartia is not going to do very well with succulents that are kept in direct sunlight. And then again, a lot of people tend to ask me which is better, keeping succulents in individual pots or making arrangements. This is completely your choice. It's from person to person, it depends. Because it's not necessary that I tend to make arrangements for all of my succulents. A lot of my aguides, I do not prefer to keep them in arrangements. I usually prefer to keep them in individual pots, as you can see, or maybe two of them in the same pot. But in general, you might have seen my last video as well, wherein I was plucking out all the flower stalks from my aguides. All of my aguides were in single pots. Now this is just a personal choice. I prefer to keep my aguides in a single pots rather than keeping them in arrangement. Even for that matter, I do not like to keep them with other echuarias as well. I prefer that they are very beautiful and they look much better in single pots, in individual pots. So this again depends upon you. So it's all up to you. If you want to put them in arrangements with other echeveриas, you can definitely do that. But always remember, aguaides like a good amount of direct sunlight. They do not like to be kept in indirect bright light or in shade. They will start having issues. So that's why I do not take that chance, and I keep all of my aguaides in individual pots, or maybe two of them in the same pot, and I give them a good amount of direct sunlight throughout the year. But I would never, even by mistake, happen to add Havartia with aguaides, because both of these varieties of succulents have very different requirements in terms of light. So obviously, I would never put a Havartia in between of aguaides because it's not going to do well. The Havartia will definitely get burnt if it is kept in direct sunlight, and vice versa. If you're going to keep the aguaides in shade or in indirect bright light, probably it might not get a lot of colors. So that's why I never mix aguaides with any other succulent. I prefer to keep them in individual pots. Now I know a lot of you guys might not have a lot of space, and that's why you tend to make arrangements. It's absolutely okay. Probably in this arrangement, you can see there are two echeverias. Probably you can put 3 or 4 of them in that same pot so that you can save up on some space. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.